Yeah.
want to unpack this further though, because both of these. So let's go, Georgina. Can you tell us more about that replication?
Sure. So really, I have to preface this by saying that recently Kylie Jenner made this study be viral in the social media world because she replicated this study with her daughter Stormy, and my daughter actually said, "Oh my gosh, there's this really cool study that Kylie Jenner did." I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's a psychology study!" And so it's just amazing how psychology is everywhere. First of all, that's one of the and a classic study like done 50 years ago is still relevant today. But one of the things that we really have to think about is replicating these studies that were done so long ago, 50 years ago, and diversifying our samples and increasing the sample size, but also thinking about other variables that may be at play here. And what the Watts, Duncan, and Quen in 2018 found is that when they added in some of those other environmental background characteristics of these kids and their families, social economic status, and things like that, it basically made that willpower, that delay of gratification finding disappear. And that there may be other reasons, other variables at play here. And it kind of speaks about some of the systematic things that are happening in our world that may influence how kids behave even at a young age, like 3 years old. And so although they did find some of the same findings, they were about half as weak, half as strong as the original finding.
Regina, an optimist or a pessimist?
Exactly.
They half strong or were they half weak?
So that's what I have to say about that replication study with a more diverse and larger sample with other variables added in, tell a similar yet very importantly different story.
This has been a viral meme lately, people pointing out that the flaw in that study and really talking about how that what they really found, that it has a lot more to do with SES than it does anything else. So Regan, you wanted to talk about the combination between these two quick.
Well, I think a big deal. There are a couple of things. First off, I think, when you talk about how some of these studies are becoming memes, I think what's also happening is we are looking at these, in quotes, classic studies with a scrutiny that we've never had before. I mean, both the studies we've talked about have been scrutinized and debated and hassled. I mean, the doll study, there's some really fascinating things here. Firstly, the big finding. I mean, there's lots in there, but the big finding is 59% of black kids said the black doll was bad. When the researcher said, "Hand me the bad doll," they handed the black doll, right? That's really the biggie. That's just horrendous, right? The whole racial preference and identification. But there's so many interesting things beyond that finding that's talked about. Number one, right? Talk about the intersection of race, culture, and gender. I mentioned at the outset that it was a Kenneth Clark and Mamie Clark study, but what people often don't realize is the doll study was actually Mamie Clark's master's thesis that she did in 1939 that she didn't publish. The first time you see the doll study is this 1947 paper, and it's a chapter in Readings in Social Psychology, which is sort of interesting. Their other papers are in the Journal of Social Psychology, the Journal of Education, and so on. But this chapter is in this. And I think that's partly because there's so much surrounding it. Cool communalities. Mamie Clark and Kenneth Clark, the first two African Americans to get PhDs from Columbia, and Columbia is of course Walter Mischel. And so I thought that was really cool. I think even the age groups, the kids in this study were, I think, 3 to 7. Between 3 to 7, and that's relatively close to the marshmallow study. And I think both these studies have been dragged out and maybe pulled out when we really need to make some big social points. So I think just really, really, cool stuff there. And I'm just going to leave this as a teaser. There is a lot of intrigue between what the doll study showed in terms of North versus South preferences and what is more often talked about. And let me just say, it's not the same.
Mm, that
There
is
you go.
awesome.